So, a brief run through the Interfaces project. First of all, about the overall project concept. What was it about, and why did we do this to start with? As we see, it is about audience development, but a lot of projects are about audience development. What we decided to do is focus very much on the points, the places where audiences and new music, because Interfaces is about new music and sonic art in general, actually meet. What are the places, what are the formats, what are the modes in which publics come into contact with music? So these places, modes, formats are the interfaces in question, and that's what the project is about. Working at that level, experimenting with that kind of interaction and seeing how we can make it better, more friendly, more engaging. That's what the project was all about. And we did this, of course, through a variety of viewpoints, and that's what makes the project also interesting, is, as I said many times today, and I mean it, the partnership and the kind of variety of perspectives and practices that the partnership has.
So for almost 4 years, the Interfaces Network united 9 diverse partners from 8 European countries, plus other international institutions, with an extensive and varied experience in performing multimedia, new media, acoustic and electroacoustic research, community action and education. This transsectoral approach of the project involved 2 universities, the Montfort University in Leicester, UK, and European University in Cyprus, 2 research and cultural institutions, IRCAM in France and ZKM in Germany, CREMAC from Romania, a small association aims to promote experimental music, mainly expressed through the Hyperion Ensemble, QO2, an experimental space in Brussels focusing on sound art and contemporary music, and of course, really important partners to very important contemporary music ensembles in Europe, Ictus, based in Belgium, and Klangform Wien in Austria. But also, we couldn't do anything without working on the local level with different other type of institutions. So we had a variety of associate partners with us, like the Center Yannis Xenakis, Theatru Mundi, Tune City, Mede Electronique and Syros Institute, the Azoma, Pharos Art Foundation, and many more, depending on the country and depending on the project. So through a variety of activities, educational programs, concerts, site-specific events, seminars and conferences, a large number of experts in the field of new music and sound art came together to experiment with new ways of redefining the position of music in our contemporary world.
And working with a very large variety of audience. Obviously, the priorities for this varied from partner to partner, and depending very much on the local situation, where audiences are not the same across Europe. The audience in Paris is not the same as the audience in Athens, for example. It's quite obvious. So the activities ranged from, let's say, more specific actions where the audience was perhaps more professional, we were concerned with capacity building and knowledge transfer for people working in the cultural sector, but also very much reaching out to new audiences in the general public, especially through engaging new spaces and new ways of interacting with music. But above all, I would say, and perhaps some of the most successful projects were involved with education and work within communities of various kinds, school communities, local communities of very varied demographics. And it again goes to show that there's a limit to what you can do just presenting as an institution, large or small, but without actually going into the community and working with people experientially, etc. So that's, I think, one of the important things that we gained from that. As I said, and as we saw before on the slide, there are a variety of actions. I'll just mention a few of them to give you an idea of the variety. One interesting format that was developed a lot was the liquid room, which was developed by Christos from Brussels in Belgium, a format that really sets out to break the 19th century concert format, allowing a very fluid audience participation in the music that's being made. I mean, we've discovered throughout the project that it's really important to find ways of getting outside the concert hall in the traditional sense, which is sort of stigmatized for many people, especially for the young people, young audiences, who, as we'll see in the report we'll hear about tomorrow, are a very important and very hopeful part of the demographic that we're trying to reach out to. Another one is using public space, investing the public space. This picture is from an action called In Situ, run by IRCAM. This, as you cannot see, is the plaza in front of the Centre Pompidou. It was a project done by the Japanese artist Fujiko Nakaya and her fog sculptures, along with the group KTL and a very impressive bunch of Alpic horn players called Alponom. And this whole fog dimension here creates a sort of disorientation for the public, that you really don't know where you are. You're sort of immersed in the sound, but at the same time it is a public space, so you are engaged because you're moving through a space that you're familiar with, at the same time completely disoriented by this. So this kind of play between using the public space and a recognizable public space, but transforming it through the kind of artwork that we were presenting was one dimension of the project. Another one was the Atlas project. This was an experimentation with telematic performances. It was a single performance, a concert that took place last year in December, simultaneously in Athens, Paris, and Karlsruhe, organized by IRCAM, ZKM, and Onassis here, where three composers, and from our side it was Dimitris Kamarotos, who I think is with us this evening, worked together over a period of almost a year, perhaps a year, to find a way of how we would integrate sounds from these cities into a composition that was made up of individual work. Each composer brought his own way of working, but the final result was a sort of live, improvised event across three cities, but at the same time was completely based on sounds that were locally sourced. And at least here in Athens, were crowdsourced in a sense that Dimitris Kamarotos ran a workshop training people from the interested members of the public to actually go out and record the sounds that would then be a part of what he used in the Atlas project. So it's both extremely local and extremely translocal at the same time. One of the major actions of the project, at least from our side, was Tune City, an action that took place in the archaeological site of ancient Messini, and I'd like to thank the Ministry of Culture here for giving us the permission to do this. It's not easy. There's a kind of phobia about using archaeological spaces in Greece, which is a pity. But anyway, Messini is, let's say, directed by a very forward-thinking archaeologist, Petros Themelis, and so the collaboration was amazing. The idea here was how to explore and understand an urban space through sound and through talking about sound and relating it to the idea of a city. This was part of an ongoing project curated by Karsten Stabanov called Tuned City, and in Greece he collaborated with Manolis Manousakis to build up the program for Messini. And the idea is that, okay, Tuned City has taken place in real live cities. How do we approach this idea of an ideal ancient city? And Messini is one like that, where you can actually see the structure. It was extremely interesting to confront this very ideal type of city, and the city as a kind of political instrument with the instruments of sonic research today. So again, that kind of varied use of both technologies and theory and the space was something that was characteristic of what we were looking at in interfaces. Finally, as another kind of action, the Happiness Machine by Klangforum Wien. Here, what we were interested in is how we can bring a whole range of different kind of stimuli into what a musical outing is. In this case, it was 24 hours of music, discussion, sleepovers, eating, videos, animated films, all this constituting one reflection about the economy today and how we can think about the economy different, around the theory about the economy for the common good. So the idea here was to take an economic political theory, to take a whole variety of disciplines and bring them together in a kind of experience that's really immersive in a different sense, immersive in the sense that you engage yourself in a process, a long process, much longer than one would normally do, in order to get a different approach, both to the sound and to the sound's relation to theory and thinking about the world we live in.
And of course, all this year we learned a lot, but one of the main ambitions of the Interface project is to leave something back, to leave something tangible. And one excellent example is the Young Performance Repertoire project, where we aim to cover the lack of sufficient repertoire of innovative new music for children aged from 6 to 12 years old. And we had earlier the opportunity to listen to these new compositions. So as a network, we commission young and international composers. They composed works for commonly played instruments and for chamber music groups that could inspire young musicians to explore the sonorities and techniques of contemporary music while always remaining at their physical capabilities. So works like from composers like Dimitris Andrikopoulos, Estir Lemi, Gunde Gasmite, Mirnas Bourboudakis, and many more are uploaded on the website of the project, which also serves as an open electronic archive of scores. And I would like also to mention here regarding the legacy that most of the outcomes or the deliverables, the tangible deliverables of the projects are distributed or available under the Creative Commons license.
Education programs were a major part of what we did, already a core dimension of the project. As I mentioned, some were more, as we would say, business to business and really addressed to cultural professionals, by cultural professions. Others were more open in the form of symposia. We had several symposia focusing on themes such as participation, community projects, the visual dimension of contemporary composition, the future of immersive technologies in sound, or the role of architectural and urban space in new sonic art. So, reaching out to a variety of disciplines, not just music, but bringing a lot of disciplines into a discussion about sonic art. Very many of them were, however, in schools, reflecting our conviction that it's essential to increase the contact young people have with forms of music that are not present in mainstream media. And as I said before, these projects were all experiential and reached out to young people who often only had a minimal exposure to contemporary art of any form. And I'd just like to mention one moment in one of these projects in a technical lyceum here in Athens, where one of the students said, I no longer, when I walk in the street and I hear a car horn or I hear a bird, I don't hear it in the same way again. I hear it as a potential building block for composition and for sound. Now, for me, that really encapsulates what this project is about, has been about, and what projects like this could be, really shifting the way people approach what music and sound making is. And one of the other education-related projects that I'd like to mention, because it's particularly important, I think, is the massive open online course designed by the European University of Cyprus. The course aims to give an interested audience the tools with which to understand the evolution of sonic art during the 20th century. It uses open resources, a tutorial structure, and feedback from teachers to guide the user. And it's one of the Interfaces projects that will hopefully keep going long after the project cycle ends. And this is, I think, one of the important things about the project, as Dora said earlier, that there are a lot of things that will remain behind.
Another way of bringing new music and sound to public space is through digital technologies. My City, My Sounds is a georeferencing application for iOS smart devices, which was initially developed by ZKM and then further developed within the framework of the Interfaces project in collaboration, of course, with ZKM, the Onassis Stegi and mοντέλα Electronique. It can be used to create sound walks and then upload them and share them with a growing community. You have the chance to check the application and a lot of sound walks on the 4th floor, where we have like a demonstration of the software, and you can discover different soundbooks developed like for the city of Karlsruhe, or explore a new form of digital art mapping in downtown Athens developed by mοντέλα Electronique, and also to listen to 8 really interesting compositions composed by 8 composers that were inspired by 8 important points of Thessaloniki. So someone can wear their headset and walk around the city, stand outside like one of the historic points, and experience an in situ concert. Another example of how we can use technology in the way that we can reach new audiences is 2 composition tools that we have been developing the last 4 years. One is to compose with sounds by the Montfort University, which will be launched also really soon. And it's a software program for young composers who would like to learn how to compose with sounds and focus on the traditional and not focus on the traditional manner of making music. And another application has been developed in collaboration with Center Yannis Xenakis and the European University of Cyprus, the UPIC Sketch, which is an application for music composition by drawing, inspired by Yannis Xenakis' UPIC. And the user can sketch and design sounds, gestures by defining the melodic contour, as in the case of a conventional score, and without requiring any knowledge of solfège. The software, the application is available and you also for free online, and you also have the chance, if you visit the 4th floor, to test a little bit how it works.
Well, Interfaces was from the start a very ambitious project, and we've only mentioned a few of the actions that we undertook during these 4 years. And in fact, we ended up doing even more than we set out to do, which I think showed the enthusiasm of all the partners for the actions we planned and discussed together. And it also showed that a lot of these ideas were very productive and gave rise to new projects that we hadn't thought of initially. And because we were very efficient in using our resources, we were able to actually do more than we initially put in our work plan. Anyway, the project pushed all of us to the limits of what we were doing, or it pushed us to experiment with new directions, technological, spatial, social, and educational. And this synergy really was, and the discussions we had during the partner meetings were really, I think, one of the essential dimensions that I retain from all this experience. The project created a lot of materials, not just photo and video, but also compositions, as we said, teacher training manuals, softwares, courses, transcripts of symposia, all of which are available under a Creative Commons license. And we hope that this material will continue to live after the end of the project cycle.